Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead, and I have a series that I'm going to be reading. So these are the DJ Dillon series. Let me see. I'll show you what it looks like. Right here. When my two younger boys were growing up, I think they were probably maybe 5 and 7, or they could have been 6 and 8. I began reading these stories to them, and I think they are wonderful stories that people of all ages will enjoy. Children will enjoy them once they're old enough. So I'm just going to start. Sorry, I have to wear glasses or I can't read. So the first book in this series is called The Hair Pulling Bear Dog. And the main character is going to be a boy named DJ Dillon. So I'm going to start this one. And what I will do is I will read, I don't know, 1, 2, or 3 chapters at a time, and we'll get through this whole series. The series has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books. And some words are a little hard for me to say because I just don't know what they sound like. You know, they're not from my language. But like an Irish shillelagh, and that is a short, thick stick often used as a walking cane. You're going to hear a lot about that. So if there's some other words that we're unfamiliar with, I will talk to you about that. Okay, so chapter 1, Coming of the Outlaw Bear. And it just has this simple picture right there. At first, DJ Dillon thought the terrible nightmare had returned. In his sleep, he heard again the squeal of the brakes, the crash, and then the awful silence. The 13-year-old boy's blue eyes blinked open. He stared into the soft moonlit darkness of the kitchen, where he slept on his rollaway bed. His blonde head turned automatically toward his parents' bedroom wall beside him. He started to call softly, "Mom?" Then he remembered. She was dead, 6 months now, killed in that auto accident. The mountain silence had carried the sound for miles. DJ had heard it up in the canyon without knowing who was in the collision. Collision means a wreck. Memories flashed over him again. He swallowed hard, like a silent, ugly monster. DJ started to turn over and bury his face in the dusty pillow when he heard the crash again. But now he was wide awake. He jumped out of bed. His bare feet hit the faded linoleum. "Dad! Grandpa! The pigs! Something's after the pigs!" In his shorts, DJ ran past the wood-burning cook stove, past the sink, and to the back door. He jerked it open and dashed into the warm June night without even picking up a flashlight. The full moon outlined the Sierra Nevada mountains, the evergreen trees, and the sagging outbuildings. An outbuilding would be like a shed or a barn. The boy ran barefooted towards the small lean-to where Grandpa Dillon's shoats were pinned. Probably some dumb old dog. Grandpa Dillon always said DJ was half boy and half jackrabbit because of the way he ran. Running on his toes, the mountain boy made no more sound than the gentle night breeze. He passed Grandpa's vegetable and rose garden with a single strand of electric fence to keep the deer out. DJ slowed only enough to pick up a couple of hard dirt clots. You know what a dirt clot is? It is mud that is dried. It's very hard, almost like a rock. He raced on out of the moonlight into the deep shadows of the old shed. DJ drew his arm back, ready to throw those dirt clods when he rounded the corner of the pig pen. Where it was, he stopped instantly. So did his heart. There, visibly in the full moon, was a wild bear. He stood on his hind legs like a man, but this bear seemed to be as tall as a ponderosa tree. That's a very big tree you see in the mountains. His eyes glowed orange in the moonlight. DJ could see the bear was night black except for a white blaze that was on his chest. A limp, freshly killed sholt lay in the bear's giant, shaggy arms. Now, a sholt would be, let's see if I can tip this down a little more. A sholt would be a baby pig. DJ's brain screamed, "Run, run!" But his legs weren't listening. DJ could only stare at the bear and the dead, weanling pig. It looked as small as a kitten in those ugly, crooked claws the size of DJ's head. Goosebumps chased themselves up and down the boy's bare arms and across his shoulders. The bear made a warning whoa, whoa sound and clicked his teeth. He huffed again, whoa, dropped the pig, came down on all 4 feet. DJ dropped the dirt clods as the bear charged. DJ's legs came to life and he spun around. But in that moment, he saw the animal's lower jaw was swollen, bigger than it should be. And it was deformed. It wasn't shaped right. The jackrabbit in DJ took over and ran in a great leaping bounds back towards the house. Bear! The word came out weak and croaky. DJ tried again louder. Bear, Dad! Grandpa! Bear! A bear! This time, DJ's voice worked just fine. The 100 people living at Stony Ridge 10 miles away might have heard him. DJ ran like a scalded cat around the shed. He almost ran into his father, racing toward the boy from the house. Sam Dillon, that was his dad's name, carried his old Craig rifle and a 5-cell battery. DJ yelled, "Look out, Dad! Killer bear!" The boy pointed wildly in the direction of the pig pen and fell behind his father. He stepped wide around the corner and threw the light and the gun. DJ yelled, "There he goes!" The bear was hightailing it for the tall timber. It was amazing how fast such a big, clumsy-looking monster could move. He was bounding in a rolling gait, that's a way that they run, through the downed hog wire fence towards the safety of the California Sierra Nevada mountains. DJ's father fired the long-barreled .30-40 caliber rifle. The explosion almost broke DJ's eardrums, but in the flashlight's bobbing beam, DJ saw the bear was still running. The boy heard his father frantically working the bolt to put another shell under the firing pin, but before he could raise his weapon again, the bear topped a ravine of pines and cedars and he disappeared. From that moment on, DJ's life was forever changed. An hour later, sitting on homemade benches in the living room table. DJ's father was cussing a blue streak. Now that's not a nice way to talk, as DJ's mom used to say. Sam Dillon was a powerfully built man with a huge chest that seemed out of proportion to his short legs. He sat in his old frayed blue pajama bottoms. He repeatedly pounded his fist right onto his left palm. DJ saw the calluses that had formed even through heavy gloves from his dad's work as a choker setter in the timber. Now that would be a logger. And choker setters, they wrap like a cable around a big tree, and then they set it so that it can be pulled up after it has been cut. Dad said again, "No doubt about it. This here's the Outlaw Bear we've been hearing about. The bee men and the livestock ranchers got a reward on his ornery hide, but this is the first time he ever struck on this side of the stony ridge." DJ felt weak and all talked out from telling his story many times to Grandpa Dillon. He was a feisty little man with a contrary streak as wide as a barn door. Contrary means he liked to argue. Grandpa was thin as a piece of baling wire, and he was slightly stooped, so he kind of bent a little bit. He was still excited, waving what he called his Irish shillelagh, a blackthorn cane he used because of his arthritic hip. Grandpa wore his long johns. Long johns were a type of long underwear that went all the way down to your ankle, and they were made to keep you warmer in the wintertime, as he always did, even in the spring and the summer. His small, round wire-rimmed bifocals rested far down on his thin nose, kind of like this. Without his teeth, his mouth looked funny. "Did you see that bear's footprint, DJ?" Grandpa asked for the umpteenth time. DJ nodded. He had seen the track clearly when Dad turned the flashlight on the soft, smelly earth of the pig pen. Do you know why that would be smelly? It would be smelly because the pigs have been pooping in it. But Grandpa didn't wait for a reply. He slapped the shillelagh on the oilcloth so hard the heavy coffee mugs jumped up. A splay foot, that's what it was, DJ. The left hind foot was sort of broad and flat and turned outward. Deformed, maybe from being caught in a trap or injured somehow. DJ looked around the room, hardly seeing the bare electric bulb swinging by its long cord above them. He didn't see the familiar wallpaper that peeled and curled. There were some old pictures that had been his mother's, and a picture of Jesus saved from a calendar. The wood-burning heating stove sat toward the kitchen, Dad's bedroom door wide open behind the stove. Dad and Grandpa's rooms were separated by an incomplete bathroom. It held only a tub and a homemade closet. The other facilities, like the toilet, were outside in the back of the house. Beside the tables and benches, the only other pieces of furniture in the living room was a broken down horsehair sofa placed just under the side window. Behind the sofa was Dad's 5-string banjo, Grandpa's fiddle in a dusty black case, and a guitar that belonged to DJ's mom. None of the instruments had been touched in months. DJ loved Grandpa in a special way, though Mom used to say he was quite a character. DJ long ago realized Grandpa saw things in different ways from most people. Instead of being mad like his son over the Outlaw Bear's raid, Grandpa cackled like a Rhode Island red hen. Have you ever heard of chicken? That bear must weigh 300 or 400 pounds. And he's got a regular suitcase of a foot, a satchel foot. That's what we'll call him, Old Satchel Foot. Grandpa liked to name things. No matter what an animal's name was, Grandpa gave it another. That was one of the reasons he and his son argued so much. Each man said the other was contrary. Suddenly, Dad slammed his powerful hand down on the rickety old table so hard, DJ jumped. Dad cried, "I got it!" He scratched his 2-day-old growth of fierce black whiskers. "We'll get us a dog. I'll go back to hunting bears like I used to before DJ was born." DJ's heart jumped so high it nearly sailed out of his mouth. "A dog? Dad, really?" "Just before school let out, I heard about a kid who had collie puppies for sale." "Collie?" Dad's voice cracked like a rifle shot. He had a hair trigger temper. Now, hair trigger is usually on a gun, and if you just barely touch the trigger, it boom, blasts, and it just goes off. And that's how his dad's temper was. It could just boom, go off, and he would blow up. Sorry, I lost my place. Dad interrupted with a roar. "No pretty dogs. What we need is a bear dog, a genuine hound dog." Dad jumped up from the splintery bench and began pacing. "We can use the bounty money." And bounty money would be money they would get for capturing and killing a bear that was hurting or killing animals. DJ felt his stomach twist and fall right to his ankles. For as long as he can remember, he wanted a collie. With a collie, DJ wouldn't be so lonely. He'd have a friend to talk to in the summertime and to roam the woods with. But Dad was strong in his opinions, as strong as his body was. In fact, Dad was about the strongest man DJ had ever seen. DJ was exactly the opposite. Tall for his age, skinny, fair, that means light complected, and freckled with uncombed, pale yellowish white hair spilling over his forehead. Spilling like this, I guess. Grandpa always claimed DJ took after his mother's side of the family. Dad turned to glare at his father. "Maybe 2 or 3 hounds." Dad seemed to be daring Grandpa to say something against the idea. DJ saw the pure cussedness. That's what his mom used to say. Raise up in Grandpa's pale blue eyes. DJ was sure the two men were about to get into an argument. But Grandpa didn't say anything. Maybe that was because DJ's eyes were begging Grandpa not to argue anymore. When Mom was alive, she kept the two men peaceable most of the time. But DJ couldn't do that. Dad said, "Yes, sirree, DJ, trail hounds, bear hounds." His bare feet made little dusty puffs from the splintery pine floor. "Real hounds that'll run down varmints and help set meat on the table. And that reward is waiting for me. All I gotta do is take out that bear's ornery hide. Those hounds will guarantee we get the bounty." And a bounty is the reward, remember, it'd be money. Grandpa asked, "Sam, Where are you going to get hounds around here? Dad slapped his strong hands together with satisfaction. I'll go trade with Boot Mahoney first thing tomorrow. Then I'll get that bear. Grandpa snorted. Maloney'll skin you alive and make you thank him for doing it. He won't either. You're just talking through your hat. The argument was on. The boy jumped up and ran out the front screen door, which was open into an unscreened L-shaped porch. The porch stood on posts about 3 feet off the ground. Now, if I want to know how far that is, I can take my hand, stretch my arm all the way out, and if I go from my fingertip to the middle of my chest, that's 3 feet. You can try that and see about how high that house sat up from the ground. 3 feet off the ground in front of the house and about a foot off the ground on the side by the sofa. So it was on a hill. Grandpa's red cane-bottomed rocking chair was just outside the door. DJ ignored it. He sat down on the top step and looked through the evergreen conifers towards the country road. The Dillon's small frame house, once yellow, but not painted for a long time, was the only dwelling for 2 miles. The rented house stood alone atop the tall hill on a good quarter-mile back in the ponderosa pines and cedars. There wasn't even a dirt driveway from the paved county road. DJ heard the crickets in their nightly chorus. The big old bullfrog sang jagarum, jagarum in a deep bass voice from the pond by the creek. DJ usually enjoyed the mountain sounds. But tonight he hurt too much. He looked up at the Milky Way and all the millions of stars and whispered fiercely, I don't want a hound. I want a collie. His mother had sided with him in favor of a collie, but it hadn't done any good. Usually Grandpa spoke up for DJ. The old man seemed to understand a boy without friends his own age needed a dog for a companion. That was especially true during school vacations. DJ had told Grandpa his reason for wanting a dog. If I had a collie, we could go on adventures together. I could write stories about him. DJ had always loved to read. He had made up his mind that someday he'd be a famous author of dog stories. DJ also wanted a boy his own age for a friend. DJ wanted Dad and Grandpa to quit arguing all the time. Grandpa had once said, DJ, you got a powerful lot of wants for one boy. But mostly, DJ wanted a collie to be with him, to play with and just have someone to talk to that didn't always argue. Not one kid anywhere near his own age lived closer than 2 miles away. Since school had let out 2 weeks before, not a single person had waded across the creek and climbed up the red dust road to the Dillon house. The mountain boy raised his eyes to the night skies again, looking up. He hadn't prayed since his mother had died because he wasn't really sure that God was real or that he answered prayer. But the boy was hurting enough that now his lips moved. Why, he whispered, why can't I have a collie? But the boy, I got nothing else. Is it too much to ask for? There was no answer, just the light spring breeze whispering in the ponderosas and cedars, the crickets in the dry grass, and the deep booming voice of the old bullfrog in the distant. Rup, rup. DJ leaned against the rough porch wall, closed his eyes to the world, just like this. He sat there a long time, hearing Dad and Grandpa argue and hurting all over more than any place else, as Grandpa would say. And DJ knew it was going to get worse because of that bear.
How much more you got to read?
So it's been 25 minutes since I started this. I really don't want the video to be any longer than that. I only got through with one chapter. But the next chapter is going to be The Hair Puller's Secret. And I will do that one for you tomorrow night. So I just want to say...
Just one a night then.
I just want to say that I'm so glad that you are joining. I hope that you will be with us each night as we read through this series, and hope you enjoy it. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house, out of your house. And I want you to know it's always good to keep dreaming, whether it's for a collie dog or whether it's for a friend. Whatever you're dreaming for, just know it's okay. All right. God bless you and good night.